Hello and welcome back to the Final Fantasy V Forge Out Fiesta 2022. This is the battle with Exdeath at the end of Act 2. We call this the castle version of Exdeath. Exdeath we'll see, of course, later for the final battle. Exdeath here has two forms, so to speak. Doesn't really change form, but two AI scripts. The first one is much more dangerous than the second one for a party like this. So first move is often going to be the condemn move right there. Not always, but it often is the condemn move. So the white mage has 29 ticks before he's going to be KO'd. We're putting protections up here. We've got white magic on some of the other characters that we can control. The Berserker is just going to be swinging that... oh, that's an air knife, I think. Yep, swinging the air knife. Dispel is a really nasty thing that Exdeath can do. Dispel takes off your buffs. So when we are applying image and shell and protect and all these things that will help us, the Dispel just takes all of them off. Takes everything off. So Dispel is one of the most dangerous things he can do because it takes us 2 actions to get on shell and image, but it takes him 1 action to take that out. The white mage here is breaking a light staff. So a light staff is a rare drop from one of the enemies in World 2. I sort of did some grinding for it. I got kind of lucky and got an early drop of a light staff. Exdeath here is weak against Holy Elemental, but you don't have access to the Holy spell yet. So one way to get Holy Elemental damage is to break a light staff on him. So you get a one-time burst right here. Exdeath has just south of 33,000. I think it's 32,768. It's the power of 2. I think it's 2 to the 15th. You may want to check my mathematics on that, but it's a power of 2 with the 32,000. So the white mage here actually has equipped katanas, I think, as the secondary ability. So the air blade is going in. And that's in case the white mage wants to go on the offensive. He can do a wind slash because the air blade actually will boost your wind power. But it's more likely using terrain in here that I get a lot of things like gusts, which are weak, and also things like sonic boom, which is a percentage-based attack that doesn't hit boss-type enemies. We call that heavy in this game. So Earthshaker is one of the things that the first form here can do. I push pause there just to look at the damage printout. You can see the characters without Shell took a lot more damage. Shell is the blinky green ability there. The characters without Shell took a ton more damage than the characters with Shell, actually, twice as much. So there was Sonic Boom. That's, again, one of those percentage-based things, kind of like Demi, but those will miss these heavy-type enemies, and you have no control over that. Cure 3 is a saving grace for this game because it gets everybody back up to full health. Vacuum Wave that Exdeath's use is kind of a 1.5 times damage multiplier on a physical attack. So when he does that, it does a lot of damage. Of course, it misses if the character has image, or it misses if the character has Blade Grasp or a shield or one of the dodging things. Thinking back on this one, I probably would have, on a second chance, put the evade or the blade grasp on the white mage again, kind of like I did for the crystal battle earlier in this run. So I probably should have done that. Hurricane will just actually put him down to single-digit HP. He actually fell to the last tick of the condemn move, so that actually was a wasted action by Exdeath because he used the Hurricane, which sets single-digit hit points on a character, or weak status we call it. And, of course, he was going to be ticking down anyway, so that's okay. But Condemn is now clear on that white mage, and now we can start protecting him. The reason I wasn't wasting actions on protecting the white mage is because he was doomed in 30 ticks anyway. So now we can start trying to protect him. That was a Dispel. That's an example of a Dispel that took away a couple of protections there. Image status and Shell were both applied, unfortunately, there. And there's nothing really you can do about that. You can't dodge it, you can't reflect it, because that actually removes reflect as well. Dispel's a nasty one. White mages have a lot of tools. Dispel is a big weakness for them. But it's definitely a powerful tool in your hands when you get access to it later on, as we'll see in some later battles with, Omniscient. So the Berserker is doing less damage because the Berserker's in the back row. Earlier in this fight, I didn't mention it because it all goes by so quickly. There's a move called Dynamo, which if it hits, it will switch the row of your character. So back row characters get pushed to the front, and vice versa. The Berserker got pushed back there, but the Berserker cannot put in the action to change her row back. She cannot do that by herself. She's going to need another Dynamo to move her to the front row. Now, Condemn popped up again. That means that Exdeath has wrapped through his AI script. He's gone all the way through the first portion of his AI script and goes back to the beginning. When we get him about halfway down, under 16,000 I think it is, so a little more than halfway, he will switch to, again, kind of a desperation mode where every turn he has a chance to do up to 2 actions. He can do a physical attack like a vacuum wave and or a spell. Or a couple of spells. Usually it's a single targeting Aga level spell, so Fire 3, Bolt 3, or Ice 3. That form is actually a little bit easier for us to deal with because it can do only single targeting stuff. Now it can do 2 different targets in a round, and it can actually, can KO 2 of your characters in one action. But if you have enough Phoenix Downs or life spells, you can tank that with just about any party that you wanted to. We could just spend our whole time throwing Phoenix Downs at a Berserker or casting life spells and letting the Berserker just wear Exdeath down in that second half. We'd be totally safe doing that. It'd be a long time and a lot of resources that not necessary. But we'll know we're in that segment of his AI routine once we start seeing things like Fire 3, Bolt 3, Ice 3. Vacuum Wave is in both of his AI scripts, so the first half and in the lower half, so that's not really a tell. Right there is a swing of the air blade from the White Mage, and actually gets a Wind Slash, so pretty nice damage there from the White Mage. Now that's where a Blade Grasp could have dodged that. Now you saw an attack and then immediately a Fire 3 in the AI script. That's called No Interrupt. That can be good, actually, and also can be nasty. So no interrupt means that the game will target these 2 things back to back without checking anything in between. And that happened there is the first physical attack was, I believe, enough to KO the White Mage. But then the no interrupt, he targeted randomly again, and that targeting actually went back to the White Mage. So Exdeath wasted his second action because that White Mage was already going to be KO'd. So there's Ice 3, and there was a physical attack that missed the Samurai. So that was another no interrupt, except that time Exdeath more efficiently used it. The game's not really smart enough to adjust that in these battles, so it can do both on a character. It's always nice when that happens. So we need to get both protections onto the White Mage. We need to get him healed, we need to get him image, and we need to get him shelled. Unfortunately, he might go down to anything, so if he gets a spell cast on him now, the White Mage, he's going to be down. A couple of attacks will knock out his images, so he can actually survive physical attacks right now, but we need to get him cured up and shelled, and then he can actually tank a hit. Once we get all of our characters shelled and imaged, then we're fine. You can use Reflect, and we'll see Reflect later on in this fight. Reflect is a double-edged sword because it will reflect your Cure spells also. So if you are planning on using the Area of Effect Cure 3 spell, which is obviously very powerful, it's really nice for you to use. Dispel right there is one of Exdeath's response, so he's actually countering with Dispel right here. His regular AI script does not have Dispel as an action, but when he takes damage, he has a chance to use Dispel as a counter. So you'll see me slow down a little bit here on having things like the White Mage attack from the back row or the Geomancer attack from the back row, because those piddly little amounts of damage have the chance to trigger Dispel, as you see right there. So that was, in my opinion, especially looking back on it right here, not really a worthwhile use of a turn right there, because we did 100 and something damage to Exdeath, and we ended up taking a Dispel that's going to take us 2 actions to recover from. 1 image and 1 shell. So the better course here at this point is to have the Samurai and the Berserker just go after Exdeath with their most powerful stuff, and we'll see what happens. So right there, the Fire 3 hit a character with Shell. Shell splits your multiplier in half, so it actually, you can kind of, and it rounds it down, so if your multiplier is an odd number, Shell can actually give you a little bit less than half damage on an attack like that. So if the multiplier for an enemy is odd, it will get cut in half and then rounded down. So Shell can really do nice work for you. That's why you'll sometimes see it will do 800 or 900 and maybe 300 or 200 for a character with Shell instead of like 450, because it's not a direct 50% off of the final readout. There's a lot of things that go on in the back end of this game that players who've played the Fiesta quite a few times are familiar with the Game Facts Algorithms Guide and how to use it. I do have a video about how to use that on the channel that I made a few years ago. You're welcome to look through my channel and find that. So wall is the same as reflect. So right now, the characters with the blue are behind a reflect barrier. I'm using this because my characters are full health, and so if any of them are targeted by like these ice 3s, there was a nice one on the samurai, unfortunately. But if we're targeted by those spells from Exdeath, they're going to get reflected and bounce back. Reflected spells are not as they're not as powerful as a spell that's directly targeted. They are they're cut in half. Although you can do funny things like if you have reflect on multiple characters, you can do an all-targeting spell on your characters and bounce it for double back on the enemies. That's kind of a fun one to do against enemies like Omega. Okay, so now we all have wall spells. But the tricky part is now we cannot target ourselves even with the image status. We can't even put the image status on ourselves, so that Berserker is just kind of stuck until wall expires or we get dispelled. So Exdeath, though, if he casts on a character, it'll bounce back and it'll hit him for nice damage. So that's actually better damage than I think just about anybody can do. The Berserker maybe can do close to that, maybe a little bit more than that, 600 or 700 damage. Remember, it's about 16,000 when Exdeath goes into this mode. That was, I believe, just one vacuum wave. Exdeath has a chance to do just one thing. There's a vacuum wave, and yeah, there is another just single vacuum wave. So right now we're just kind of waiting to see what Exdeath has got planned for us. We're keeping our wall protection up, keeping our images up. This was me just kind of changing tactics in mid-battle because I just was noticing we were eating too many dispels. Okay, here's a Fire 3, bounced back on Exdeath. We can't stop the Berserker from fighting, so she's going to just take a swing at him every round anyway. I didn't use the axe here because the axes for Berserkers are not very accurate, and Exdeath has some physical evasion anyway. So there was a spell, I believe a spell actually blocked there by the shield. I think that's the Aegis shield that's on the samurai down there. I think that's what that is. So here we are again, kind of in waiting mode. The samurai is the only one that we want really doing any kind of attack besides the Berserker, who's going to do it anyway. But now you see I have a character who is ready to reapply Image, and then a white mage who's about to get a turn to be ready to apply Shell. That was a regular physical attack right there for 480 in the back row. That's why the white mage stays in the back row, so he does not get nerfed by things like that. Now he could even take a spell now. Now you could cut the physical damage by casting armor or protect on yourselves as well. You can obviously cut that physical damage when that does come in, but image is just way better. But the dispel is the tricky thing, because the image and the shell will stay, but reflect will not. Reflect will expire. Image and shell will stay on you for a whole battle, so they're great for a lot of boss fights that don't have dispel. They do have dispel, it's just another action you have to burn. So now we're going to healing with items, remember, because we can't use the curing magic on ourselves. We'd have to cast Reflect on Exdeath and bounce cure spells off of him. There was 2 physical attacks on the same character. He does not have image status on, and right now he actually doesn't even have Reflect. He's back to flashing green, which means that it's just the shell. So the shell stays on him. Shell stays on him. So there's image on the white mage. White mage is in pretty good shape. High potion right there just to save an elixir because we're in the later stages of this battle. 819 is pretty nice damage. And there it is though. So again, it's going to take a couple of casts to restore the Berserker to her protections. It's going to take an image and a... I don't know if I'll do image shell and then reflect, or if I'll just do image and go right to reflect. Shell only really helps them if the reflect shield expires and we haven't been able to reapply it yet. It looks like I am foregoing shell here and just sticking with wall. So changing the strategy mid-battle is something that's going to happen with a lot of these fights as you watch these in the 4-Job Fiesta. Sometimes your initial strategy is a little bit too slow, or it's a little too dangerous, or it's not as efficient as you'd like, so you just kind of change it up. And having jobs like the White Mage really give you a lot of flexibility to be able to do that. There is a lot of party lineups that do not give you that kind of flexibility, where all you can really do is just fight, fight, fight. If we had something with, with like knights and dragoons or monks, or some mix of those kinds of things, and maybe a Berserker in there, that makes this battle a lot more difficult because you don't really have the ability to change up your strategy. Your strategy is kind of level up until you're strong enough to bash the enemy through. You're not really able to use tricksy things like this, you know, reflecting his own spells with wall, protecting yourself with shell and image on the physical stuff. There's a very unfortunately targeted Ice 3. We have 3 out of our 4 characters with the wall shield, and he goes for the one that doesn't have it. Again, the game's not smart enough to actually try to dodge it, although sometimes maddeningly seems like it does, but of course it does not. Targeting of your characters is just, it's random. So there's a Fire 3, bounced, and there it is. So he's taken out by his own Fire 3. That is it for World 2. That's kind of Act 2 of this game. We're going to be heading into World 3, Act 3, and we will see you as we close this one up.